And he said, don't always talk about business. One thing he really harped on with that was don't always talk about like the how-to on real estate. Talk about you, talk about your family, talk about your faith, talk about your hobbies,
Interesting.
what you do, who you are. Just be you and be present and genuine, because, the biggest thing with raising money is getting people to know, like, and trust you.
Yeah.
So if you just be you and people get to see you from these videos, then they'll start gaining trust with you without actually having a conversation with you. So when you begin that first conversation, you're already leaps and bounds ahead of where you would have been had it just been a very introductory cold call there.
Your network is your net worth. Come listen to some of the most successful people I know share invaluable knowledge, stories, and advice in real estate, business, and beyond. This is Weiss Advice. Whether you want to take your business or personal life to the next level, look no further. Welcome back to Weiss Advice. I am your host, Yona Weiss. As always, it's great that you join me. This is a really special episode because I'm joined together with our special guest, Joshua Ferrari. Okay, he is, as exciting and as luxurious as a real Ferrari, in my opinion. So I'd love to introduce you. And if you don't know who he is already, a little context. He's a multifamily investor. It's something he's very passionate about doing full-time now, trying to go more full-time into, although in the meantime, he's still working as an aircraft technician, which is really an interesting position. I'll have to dig a little more into how the transition is working out there. So Josh, and before I forget, he's also the host of an amazing podcast called the Creative Capital Podcast. So you can check that out wherever you listen to podcasts. Josh, how are you doing?
Yona, that introduction was something serious. I've never had anyone call me a luxurious human being. I'm trying to comprehend what that looks like, and I guess I embody it. I don't know.
Listen, there's something about, people from the South, you're from Alabama, that you just have this kind of niceness to you, that kind of just flow.
Okay. Yeah. Hospitality.
There you go.
There we go.
Southern hospitality. You are a aircraft technician by day, but you're a multifamily investor, and that's really where you're headed. You're doing more. You just closed on a big deal, a very large deal for you, raised a lot of money for it, which we'll talk about a little bit, how to get into that. For you, what is it like being an aircraft technician? Let me ask you that. Let's just go there first.
Being an aircraft technician. Well,
what is that?
Let me back up a little bit first before we dive into me fixing airplanes. So the journey started out probably back when I was like 6 years old. I'd always wanted to be a fighter pilot in the Navy. My dad was in the Navy. He wanted to be a pilot when he was joining, and he got through like all the tests and everything, qualifications you had to do. And then at the very last test was like a colorblind test, and he found out he was colorblind, so he couldn't do it. So he was devastated. He ended up getting his private pilot's license and doing that. But I just was always fascinated with flying and aviation as a whole. And so come time to actually go to college and go through ROTC, and I was going to be an engineer. I was accepted into the University of Memphis, where I'm actually from, and I was ready to go. And then like a month before I started, I was like, nah, not doing it. I want to be a family man. I don't want to be gone 6 to 12 months out of the year on a carrier. I want to come home every day and raise a family. So I ended up being like, well, I love aviation. So what the heck am I going to do?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll just fix the plane. Because at first I said, well, what if I just fly commercially, for like Delta or American or something like that? And I have some uncles that are pilots, and they were like, yeah, we're going like 20, 25 days out of the month. I'm like, what? No,
nix that.
That ain't nix that. So yeah, we decided to be an aircraft technician. So you had to go, or I went to 18 months of technical school, to get my airframe and power plant license, which legally allows me to sign off and work on aircraft in the United States. And then after that, about 2 weeks after I got my license and graduated, I got a job in Mobile, Alabama. And so that's why I'm here now in Mobile.
Gotcha.
And I've been here for the last 3.5 years. So to recap that, and I guess to answer the question, that was more backstory. An aircraft technician is kind of fun. Where I work specifically, we work on large wide body aircraft. So we fix typically freighters is what we're doing now, working on UPS and FedEx aircraft. So those are like giant Airbuses, 300s, 320s, all the way to, Boeing 777s, 57s, 67s, those kind of things. They're just big old clunkers that we fix. And I primarily work on flight controls. We do rigging, hydraulics. And so I know I might not look disgusting and filthy now, but normally that's how it is. You're covered in grease, you're sweaty. There's no like air conditioning. It's just hot outside.
Right.
And it is what it is. I've always thought when I initially got in that I was going to be in like the flight line, like someone where the plane comes in and you work on it for like 10 minutes or 15 minutes, quickly troubleshoot something, quickly fix something, and then you go back to hanging out. Wait for the next airplane.
You got to move up the ladder to get to that kind of position.
Right. But then I found real estate and was like, well, I don't want to do that anymore. I just want to get out of aviation entirely, make it more of a hobby, and go full time in the real estate.
So that's pretty cool. Let me ask you about that, because a lot of people, go to college, get a job, think about things that they like to do, they want to do, and you figured it out. It sounded like, you figured that out. But then comes along real estate and people, kind of their eyes open up big and wide and they're like, wait a second, here's an opportunity. And obviously those people have enough recognition of the power of the investments and the return on investment. So you went ahead and bought an investment property. I mean, that's how you went and just jumped right in, right? He got a little education. And how did you do that? I mean, was it just you found a mentor, you went to some course? What was it for you that kind of turned on that light bulb?
The real estate light bulb came from my dad, actually. The initial spark, and then Rich Dad, Poor Dad, because that was the book he told me I needed to read, and then that was the mindset shift. Gotcha. So the spark came from my dad. He called me one day about 3 years ago and said he was going to start flipping houses. Him and my mom. And I was like, what does that even mean? Flipping houses? Like, you guys don't have that kind of money. And it ended up being like a 4 or 5 hour conversation. He's telling me all these like creative financing things and how they can make $20, $30, $40, $50,000 in a few months. And how it's like, not like super easy, but it's a lot easier than one would think to do something like that. And you build this team, everything that goes along with real estate. And I was just dumbfounded. Huh. I said, why am I just spinning my wheels, working this W-2 job, and this was only like 6 to 7 months after I had literally just gotten out of college and started my job in Mobile. I'd only been here for 6 to 7 months, just newly married, because I moved down here in July of 17, and then November of 17, I got married to my wife. And then I was January of 18 when we had this conversation. And so just brand new married, like basically brand new, started this job. And I'm like, bump this job. Like, there are better opportunities out there. So then I started reading books, listening to podcasts, found out that there was a local real estate investor meetup here. There's actually a few. I even drove as far as like Pensacola and Mississippi. And I was like, I'm just going to talk to all these people and figure out what the heck is going on, because if my parents can do it, then I can do it. Like, that's how I thought about it.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think you're very fortunate in that regard that you had someone, like your parents to give you that spark at such a young age, because a lot of people go throughout their life and don't have anyone like that they can look up to and that can give them that guidance. So you went to some of these meetups, you were meeting people, and then how did you end up buying your first property, and what was that? Which you just sold your first property that you bought. Yeah. Full cycle. So let's hear about that.
Okay. So we went to this meetup and I was kind of educating myself. Let's see, it was January of 18 when we had that conversation. And then it was late August of 18. Yeah. Late August of 18 when we bought our first property. So for about 6-7 months, I was kind of educating myself, figuring out what the heck's going on, trying to learn about wholesaling and house flipping and buy and hold rentals and the BRRRR strategy and all these different ways that you can make money. Multifamily, I was like, that's super cool. Mobile home parks, all that stuff. And so about a month or two in, so say March, we started wholesaling. I say we started wholesaling. We started sending, direct mail letters out. We started doing the marketing thing, we've been building our buyers list. And, 4, 5, 6 months goes by and we don't close anything. We get about 8, 9 properties like under contract, with our equitable interest that we were trying to flip. And not a single one of them did we actually wholesale and get money from. So we're spending money on this marketing, month after month.
Yeah.
And it's like, why is nothing happening? Maybe I wasn't marketing to my buyers. Maybe the deals just sucked. Maybe I didn't know how to analyze things. I wasn't sure. So I knew I was going to have to zero that in order to really make a profit there. But then I had to step back for a second and think, is this what I want? The whole purpose of getting into wholesaling was to get a jump start, build a little bit of capital, and then eventually jump into the buy and hold side of things. And at that point, I wasn't thinking, buy and hold multifamily. I didn't have that mindset yet that I could buy big. And so I'm thinking, a couple single family houses, some duplexes, some small multi, something like that. Right. And since we didn't make any money, I said, we're taking this money now that we're making from our W-2 job and we're spending it on marketing. Well, what if we just save that and then try to use that as a down payment? And so we calculated how long it would take to save it and then try to do this down payment thing. And I looked at my wife and I was like, it's probably going to be 2019, sometime in 2019 before we could buy a house. And so me being, I guess, a little impatient or gung-ho, like I've always been a very just like, let's do it, find that 80% solution. Let's just jump after it. The risk is the risk. That's just the nature of the beast. And so it wasn't until a month after deciding we're not going to do wholesaling anymore. We're going to buy something. Like we're going to buy a house. And we really wanted a house hack. That was the goal. And so we found a fourplex. Fourplex was our first ever actual like purchase as a married couple, just as an individual, as a real estate investment, first multifamily, first house hack, first syndication, first like house flip. It was first everything. And it was
all in one.
It was a behemoth of a deal because being that it was a fourplex, it was like 4,100 square feet, 100-year-old house, gazillion issues. And the property was in shambles when we bought it. And so I'm thinking, from everything I had learned and heard, not actually having, the hands-on experience of doing this stuff, that you want the deeply discounted property. You want the distressed property. You want that ugly stuff. And so I'm like, cool, let's buy something ugly. Make it look good. My wife was all excited. She gets to do the HGTV thing and make it look nice. Right. And then getting into it, it didn't quite turn out that way. It was we had some hiccups. Our first contractor renovated the first unit and they doubled the budget, tripled the timeline.
Oh man.
So they got fired. We had a 203K FHA loan. And so everything had to be funneled through the lender. It took 5 months to fire the first contractor, get a new contractor. Then
that's crazy.
After that, during these 5 months, I'm like, babe, we only really set aside like 6, 7, 8 months of reserves because that's all we were told it was going to take to finish the whole property. So now reserves are practically gone. And I'm like, what are we going to do? We're holding this property. There's only one unit renovated and we live in it because the other unit that we were living in was like cockroach infested. It didn't have AC. It's August. It's the heat of the summer down here in Alabama. All we had was a box fan and it was bad. So we moved into that one because it actually had AC. And I was like, well, what if we just go back down to that one and rent this one out? And then I'm thinking, my wife can't handle that stress. She already has a chronic illness. She has Crohn's disease. So I'm like, she is not going to be able to handle this. I'm going to be the one that has to move all this heavy furniture back downstairs into that unit. And so we stayed there and I said, I got to hustle. I I'm going to have to get out some loans, some personal loans. And we're going to have to get some credit cards. We're going to start buying supplies. I'm going to have to start doing the work. I can fix airplanes. I can fix a house. It can't be that hard. So we just started grinding, and it took about 18 months full cycle to finish the renovations and get all the units filled. Once we got all the units filled, it was like such a sigh of relief. Like, oh,
finally collecting rent checks.
Yes.
Right. Finally able to cover the mortgage.
And then now I'm the property manager, and everyone knows I'm the owner, and I live there. So now I'm getting like knocks at midnight, and people are seeing me like come in and out, and they're like, hey, what about this thing over here? Because a 100-year-old house, I can put all the money I want into it, and there's going to be issues like somewhere. Something is going to be wrong. And the biggest issue we had with this particular property was plumbing. So I was like, well, something's leaking. Well, this is leaking. And I'm like, and I couldn't just keep paying plumbers to come out, because plumber comes out, tightens one little thing, it's like $200. He's like, guess I'm the in-house maintenance guy too. Right. So I was handling everything, and then go full cycle. 2.5 years later, we sold it. And I did mention at the beginning, it was a syndication. We actually quote unquote raised money from my parents.
Gotcha. Your parents
to help me pay for the down payment to get into this property. And they got a piece of equity for that. And then now that we've sold it, they got all their money back, plus about a 50% ROI. Nothing crazy. Over 2.5 years, it was okay. It was decent. They were happy. And I was just glad I didn't lose their money, as crazy as the deal was. So that's where we are now.
That's awesome. And, fast forward that now you moved into bigger multifamily projects and raised over $6 million, right, in the span of 30 days. Is that no? How long did it take you to raise $6 million?
It was 30 days. I love that. I love that pause there. You said $6 million, and then you just let's just wait for it.
It's all it's all about the delivery, right?
Yeah.
But it's true. There's something great about that feeling of knowing that you've accomplished something as big as you did in order to really scale up. I mean, to go from a 4-plex to a 40 plus unit property is a big deal.
Yeah, for sure. It was. And it was, I'm really glad that we did that deal. If I could go back and do it again, I don't know that I'd buy that deal specifically. I definitely would have jumped in and bought something, even if it was just a single family residence. But I can't go back. And I'm glad we did it, because if I hadn't have done it, then for like 2 years or for a year and a half or however long it was before we bought our next property, we wouldn't have really been able to call ourselves real estate investors, in my opinion. We wouldn't have invested in any real estate.
Yeah, and you wouldn't have had that experience. And I think what you're saying essentially is that jumping in and just buying something started you on the trajectory to get to where you are and where you're going right now, frankly.
Yeah, absolutely. I would not be where I am today if it wasn't for that, being able to have that level of experience. Like I said, it's my first everything, anything you can imagine. First time dealing with contractors, all that stuff.
So all that stuff. And you learned a tremendous amount.
Right. Gaining all of that experience and knowledge. Now I know what to do moving forward. And I've been able to use that in larger deals and in business partner relationships and so on and so forth.
And more importantly, what not to do.
Oh, right. I learned more of that than anything.
Exactly. So now going forward, you're focused on mainly multifamily. I mean, is that like your ultimate, I guess that's where you're set. That's where your sights are.
Right. So the bread and butter now is multifamily syndication. I really want to grow this business. Me and my partners, we want to grow it to, thousands of units. We want to kind of to be self-sufficient to a point where we've got teams kind of handling a lot of the asset management side to where we can kind of wean out a little bit. And then we want to get more passive and start getting into some other niches that we maybe necessarily don't have to be as active in, like say self-storage or really like that. And we kind of qualified multifamily as a whole as apartments and mobile home parks. So throughout this process of growth, we've looked at mobile home parks and just some other things like that. I guess as far as diversification goes, I want to get into some of that. And I personally want to own some Airbnbs. I want to have some nice vacation properties to go to, you know what I mean? And
sure.
But yeah, the bread and butter is multifamily.
So for someone listening to this who might be in your shoes, where you are or where you were a couple years ago, recent college graduate, maybe starting to think about real estate, listen to podcasts, because that's what you got to do, right? Educate yourself. And they came across Weiss Advice. And they're like, wow, this guy really has some great guests on here. Who's this Ferrari guy? He's
Yeah.
like a Lamborghini Ferrari. I don't know what he is, but sounds cool. What would you say to them in terms of, starting that process? Would you start off with the single family, or would you just jump into bigger properties?
I would tell them it depends on what their goals are. I've had this conversation with a lot, actually, with a ton of people. Being in aviation, the mechanic side of aviation, I work with people every day that are really stuck and glued into that W-2 work for Uncle Sam mindset. And so naturally, when I'm at work, I can't not talk about real estate. It's just too awesome. So I'm usually talking about it. We're not always talking about real estate. I'm not like annoying, but it comes up in conversation. And so
Or
people ask,
interview your coworkers next.
people ask me all the time, how the heck did you get into that? Like, what do you even do to do something like that? And I always say, it really depends on what your goals are. Where are you now and where do you want to be? And then work backwards. If you like the wholesaling model, if you like the constant chase, if you want your lifestyle to be not necessarily busy, but you want to be working like 9 to 5, technically your own, but you want to be working for yourself, and you like the money that real estate brings in with wholesale deals, and you like the constant chase of the next deal, then that could be perfect for you. If you're looking for more of time, like freedom of time, freedom of getting out of the job, living your life on your own terms, maybe you want some more passive income, then I would ask, okay, where are you financially? Where are you educationally?
Yeah.
Do you know anything about real estate? And if they say, yeah, I've been learning for 6, 7, 8 months, and my goal is to get 100,000 units or whatever, I'm like, then honestly, I would jump right into multifamily, because that's what I did, and it was difficult. I'm not going to say it was easy, but it was totally worth it.
Yeah. 100%. And so now you're more focused, personally, in your partnership that you're in, you're more focused on the raising capital side of things and investor relations and those type of roles. I guess I'm asking, personally, because I always love to learn these things from other capital raisers. What's something that works for you best in terms of the capital raising?
As far as just like communications with people and like educating them on what I do, like how to actually raise the money.
Yeah. How to actually raise the money. What's the best thing you could, this is Weiss Advice. So we like to give advice on this show.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll tell you a little bit of a story or a backstory on how I raised the $6 million in 30 days. And that will hopefully be some good advice. You can pull some nuggets out of that.
There we go.
So back in July of 2020, previous to that, I had only raised like $160,000 and didn't really have much of any experience in capital raising. Never saw myself as the capital raiser, more as the analyzer, the deal finder, kind of the acquisitions guy. I love talking to people. And at that time I had the podcast, but I just didn't really know how to raise money. And so my friend, or someone I'm acquainted with, I should say, we're not like close friends, but he was doing a 30-day to 500K like money raising challenge. And I said, well, this is interesting. Followed him on Facebook for a while. He went in like from 0 years to about 3 years in, he went from 0 deals to a multi-million-dollar company in 3 years. I couldn't believe it. Like, how do you do that? And he did live in Pensacola. He was full-time military. He got out of the military and moved to Nashville. And now he's crushing it. Millions.
Wow.
His name's Bill Allen. So shout out to Bill. But so he did this little 30-day to 500K challenge. And he was only going to charge $100 to get in. $100. I can't pass this up. Like, he obviously knows what he's doing. He's raised tens of millions of dollars at this point, and he scaled that rapidly. He knows something that I can get out of this for $100. So I paid the $100. July 1st comes around, and we get this email like video of him like, hey, just giving the spiel, telling us how things are going to go. And he says, every day you guys are going to have a challenge / homework of what you have to do to get to where we want you to be at the end of this challenge. And so the very first day, he said our challenge was that we had to go live on Facebook every day for 30 days. And previous to that, I honestly hated social media. Maybe hate's a strong word, dislike. I wasn't really a part of it. I always thought it was very negative. Maybe it was the people I was following. Maybe just my surrounding influence was negative. And so I just kind of steered clear of it. But I said, okay, I'd had a social media for a while. So I had, over 1,000 friends that knew who I was and I was already friends with. So doing these live videos wasn't going to be like a total waste of time, me going to an audience of 0. So I said, okay, I'll do it. It's paid the $100. This is what he says to do. I'll do it. So start doing these live videos. It takes about a week, maybe, of doing these live videos for any traction to happen. I started the first few. I'm like super nervous, like first time on camera here, like, hey, how's everybody doing? And he said, don't always talk about business. One thing he really harped on with that was don't always talk about like the how-to on real estate. Talk about you, talk about your family, talk about your faith, talk about your hobbies.
Interesting.
What you do, who you are. Just be you and be present and genuine, because the biggest thing with raising money is getting people to know, like, and trust you.
Yeah.
So if you just be you and people get to see you from these videos, then they'll start gaining trust with you without actually having a conversation with you. So when you begin that first conversation, you're already leaps and bounds ahead of where you would have been had it just been a very introductory cold call there. And so I said, okay, it makes sense. So about a week goes by, I start getting some messages and some emails, direct messages, some text messages from people that I actually already had phone numbers with, old high school friends. I had one guy that I met twice in my entire life back when I was 8 years old. And we somehow became Facebook friends way back when. And he said, hey, man, I've been seeing you post these videos. I've got $50,000 to invest and I've been wanting to get into real estate. I said, what the heck? How does this happen? And so it was just kind of became natural to where every day, live video, every day, a little bit more traction, a little bit more growth. And I probably raised about $1 million between 25 to 30 investors over that course. And then the big ticket, what got me from $1 million to $6 million, was the referral question. So every time you have a conversation with someone, you don't just end the conversation with, whatever, like super, so stoked or whatever that you're deciding to join us, and then end it and say you'll stay in touch. I always ended it with, do you think you would happen to know anyone that might be interested in an opportunity like this? And it goes back to the law of reciprocity of people being like, well, he's helped me. He's got these deals. He's super knowledgeable. So I feel like I know someone with money. And most of the time you think that people don't have money, because I thought that. But you'd be surprised how many people that have money that just don't tell you.
Sure.
And then another part of the live videos was also a little bit of education in there. So you're not always talking about business, but you are sometimes, like being like, hey, you can invest through your IRA. You can invest through your 401k. And so when I would post a video like that, it would be people that had money in those avenues.
Sure.
They would be the ones messaging me like, holy cow, I didn't know that.
So this challenge, this 30-day challenge literally helped you to raise money on social media by making these videos.
Literally.
Long story short, like that's
it.
That's crazy. That's incredible.
Making videos.
That literally, I mean, just to me, that's just a big light bulb moment for me personally. So
yeah,
if you see me on Facebook making a video today, you'll know why.
And the big thing too was that every post was like, day 5 of the 500K challenge, or like it wasn't just me going live, which I'm sure if you just went live every day, you would also have more exposure and it would be very beneficial. But the fact that I had a purpose, I guess you could say, a reason to be on there, and that everyone knew it was because of a challenge, it was almost like more incentive for people to contact me, because they're like, oh, I'm really helping this guy out because he's trying to raise money. And no one actually said that verbatim. I could just be spitballing out here, but I feel like that was a push there.
That's incredible. That was really incredible. I found that very insightful, and love to learn more about that. I'll check that out. That guy Bill Allen, and I'm sure there's something available, this 30-day challenge out there, because it sounds intriguing. And if you can do it, right, anyone can do it.
Yeah,
And that's kind of my mindset in general in life. Like, not just if you, like, if anyone can do it, then anyone can do it.
right.
And that's really how you have to view things in life. And so, yeah, I'm going to check that out. I want to, we are short of time, but I do want to jump right into the final four. These are 4 questions we ask all our guests. The first question is, what's the worst job that you ever had?
Oh, worst job I've ever had. I'm gonna have to go with the first job I ever had, which was at the skating center in Memphis. I remember getting it, getting paid minimum wage, and it was fun at first because I thought that I was going to be the DJ. I thought going in there I was going to be the guy that get to have the mic and the music and the lights. That guy, he had a blast every day. But instead, I'm the guy behind the counter renting skates to middle schoolers who are hitting on me because I was in high school at the time. So they thought it was like the coolest thing. And I said, what am I doing here? I have got to, so that would have to be it.
Right. Wow. That's crazy. Okay. We'll keep that going. Second question, what's a book you've read that's given you a paradigm shift?
Paradigm shift. It is going to have to be, I think this past year, you actually did a 10-day challenge. It was a LinkedIn challenge where you had to post something every day.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the days I posted a book that impacted me the most in 2020. And I'm going to have to say it was Jocko Willink's Extreme Ownership. I was not only able to use that in my business, but also my personal life with my wife, which helps tremendously, of just like just taking ownership of everything, even if it's not necessarily my fault. It's almost always somehow if you're involved in it, you play a part in the fault there somewhere. So just taking that ownership has been massive.
Yeah, that's an extreme ownership, right? It's just an extremely helpful book in general. I agree with you. It can apply to your personal life, can apply to everything, because it's really what being a leader is all about. And everyone's a leader in some some way or another, especially if you are a spouse or a parent, you're a leader to a certain extent. So everyone has to have that role. Great book. I appreciate you pointing that out. And I do remember you bringing that up during the 10-day challenge. I'm glad you reminded us here. Third question, what is a skill or talent that you would like to learn?
I want to learn how to fly. I have wanted to fly. I think I mentioned this earlier in the episode, since I was like 8 years old, and I just never really had the money. I always had the time, way back when, but it costed a lot of money to get the lessons. And so now, where I am now, I've got the money. Now I've just got to make the time to go get these lessons.
There you go, which is incredible to show you that just in a short amount of time, a couple of years, you can go from not doing anything in real estate to, having a lot of cash flow, having, investments, paying for your mortgage, paying for your, everything. And now do those things that you actually really want to do. I mean, listen, people, that's what this is all about, right? and so really that's a great segue to our final question, which is, what does success mean to you?
Success to me is going to have to be, I guess it goes back to my why of why I'm even investing in real estate in the first place. And it's just more time with my family. My family is my success. Getting married was huge for me. She's been one of the best things that's ever happened to me. And so being able to spend more time with her, and, we eventually want to have kids. And so having enough money to not only have more time, but also to allow her to not have to work, because we're currently both working now. And, with her chronic illness, it's not the best thing. So for her to be able to be a stay-at-home mom with the kids and to, homeschool them, and for us to spend more time and do some traveling, that would be success to me.
Well, that's beautiful. Very, very well said. I wish you much success with that for sure. That's what success is all about. So, Josh, where can our listeners find you or reach out to you?
Well, you mentioned at the beginning, I host a podcast called Creative Capital on iTunes, Spotify, Google, all those places. You can go check me out. I am also, you can go check out our website at ferraricapital.com. Yeah, we've got newsletters there, monthly newsletter. I have blog posts that I post there. And if you sign up on the partnership tab, you can keep updated on everything that's going on in our particular market. We'd like to do market specifics down here in Mobile, as well as any new deals we have going on, some kind of educational piece. And I also wrote an ebook called it is not original. It's like the ultimate guide to investing in multifamilies or something like passively investing. It's for the passive investor. So you can get that on our homepage. Just drop your email and your name, and you'll be able to. We'll send you a link to download it, and then also social media: Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Just Josh Ferrari. You can find me.
Yeah. How many Ferraris are there that are Ferrari Capital real estate? There aren't too many, and that's right. That's awesome that you took the name and really kind of put it to use.
Exactly.
There you go. Well, I really appreciated the time you spent with us here, and looking forward to continue following your success, your journey, and wishing you much success going forward.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you having me out on the show. Jonas has been amazing, and thank you.
Yeah, the pleasure is mine, really. It's been a lot of fun. To our listeners, thank you again for joining. And remember, the best advice comes only when you ask. Real quick, I have one question for you. Did you like this episode? If you did, I want to ask you a huge favor. See, the biggest thing that helps this podcast grow and that will spread this message to the whole world is that if you leave a review, a rating, and subscribe to the podcast. What that does is it basically tells the platforms that this podcast is out on is that you like my stuff and I'm doing something right. So take a few seconds out of your day, hit that subscribe button, leave a rating or review. I would be extremely grateful. Also, I want to hear from you guys. So I want to hear some feedback. If you have any questions for future episodes, please find me on LinkedIn, send me a DM, a connection request, Yona Weiss, and I'd love to hear from you.